It's often said that we die as we live. Certainly in these last weeks of Terry's dying, we have seen the characteristics of his living writ large. Facing the truth of his circumstances down the barrel, absorbing the gravity of his illness and the likely tenuous hold on his days left. That awful word term, when first emitted, created shockwaves for both the speaker and the listener. In truth, it was less than 4 weeks from feeling under the weather, being not quite right, getting a bit of a cold, feeling a bit lack of energy, to being directed to tidy up his affairs. He brought the full brunt of this diagnosis early and deliberately. He sought not early refuge from the storm, but rather to go into its eye, to test its strength, to feel his fear, to survive its buffeting. And his courage, his faith in God, and his visionary purpose endured to his death. Supporting Carol and Terry, and Carol, his closest and most tended friend, in this time of waiting to die has been a revelation. His invitation to us to experience the mercy of God at its most intimate. In response, the community that they have supported in the years of his priesthood and their years of abundant hospitality at Farrar Street has rallied to their aid in this precious time. Literally hundreds have been welcomed at the hospital bed and at his home with Carol. By Terry insisting that he see everybody, the process of his dying has become demystified. We've not only supported him in facing his own truth, but by subscribing to this intimacy, we are ourselves drawn into the mystery of our own living and dying, and being asked to contemplate, what will we do? His courage has been our encouragement. In short, if there's to be any triumph in dying, then Terry has surely proved the case. Not all of Terry's decisions have met with widespread approval. Who would rid me of this recalcitrant priest? Said Henry II of Conservator. There would be bishops plural who would have thought if not expressed such a sentiment about Terry. He was banned from the Diocese of Hamilton after his role with the protesters and cancelling the Waikato match during the Springbok tour. He occupied a role as an unpaid minister of religion for the greater part of his priestly service because his calling wasn't in parish work, but rather in labour with the unemployed, the marginalised, and the political activists. These activities to date have not been assessed as fundable activities of the diocese. So for 20 years he had to support himself with proceeds from pub raffles, with a board from his old dad who lived with him, and from Carol's salary at Farrar Street. Ironically, in retirement, he found for the first time a stable income, a whole new life experience. We have, in these weeks of decline, read with him night prayer. The prayer of the church has been his constant companion in his priestly ministry, since taking his personal compass bearing on the option for the poor very early in his life's work. The recitation of the daily office acted as its refuge. The prayer provided shape to his day and to his work, and even more so as his strength diminished, it shaped the hospitality and supported the farewells that became the rhythm of Farrar Street. The comfort of the daily office was there for him in his deepest struggles. As his life ebbed away, the raw honesty of the Psalms prepared him and us for his passing, in the way that only thousands of years of received tradition can provide solace through what is the last great human experience. When we were about to be carted off for Bastion Point, with Joe Hawke and his whānau in the police vans of 1982 occupation, Terry stood dressed in chasuble and ill, patiently waiting for arrest. He knew the power of symbol, and liturgically clothed cleric being addressed as a powerful symbol that something was amiss. Rake Act saw the return of that land to Ngāti Whātua and vindication of their struggle for justice, and the Hawk whānau is here to pay tribute by their presence here today and calling them. When our second child was baptised, the theme of Terry's homily reflected on the unjust treatment of Bill Anderson and the drivers' union during time taking industrial action on behalf of low-income workers. My parents were outraged. My siblings were challenged. The regular Lascars were energised. No one was left neutral. As the communities that are part of Terry's life often experienced, a safe liturgical passage was never a guarantee. Preaching, which has been so much of the vital essence of his ordination and his priestly life, was also his instrument of public analysis. As followers of Christ, where are we to position ourselves? We have options, and those choices determine how we expend our lives. What he articulated as his option for the poor was no crude slogan. He worked assiduously on the intellectual tradition of the church, honing his theological inquiry with academic study and regular spiritual reflection. It was a consequence of the study, prayer and reflection that made him so awkward, both to the status quo, the sacred and the secular. His point remained simple enough. If the signal of the redemptive power of Christ in the world is the implementation of the Beatitudes, then haven't we just better get on with it? If the presenting obstacle is both personal and structural sin, should we not strive for clearer moral purpose for ourselves and expose the structural inequalities that impede social justice for the many? Often has not he found his own church strong on personal morality, but on the wrong side of the divide and dealing with institutional force and unjust power. Disagreement without disloyalty is an art form to be developed. By his own assessment, he sometimes fell wide of the mark, but he survived nevertheless to be buried from this cathedral, surrounded by his fellow priests, the bishops and the cardinal. I'm sure he'd count as a moral victory. So here we are, sending him to God. In these last weeks, he has honoured us with his openness to the raw truth of his circumstance and has actively sought our company. We have honoured him by holding his hand, consoling him with our warmth, and when he felt most wretched, and lightening his load with our song, our recollections and our stories. Through all this, he has received expert care provided by Carol and all those who have maintained vigil with him. There is love, there is grief, and there is promise of redemption. Most of